Welcome back to the PRN SLP newsletter. We are recording now? Yeah, recording now. At some point, we'll make this smoother and that recording will be better, but we're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
If there is noise in the background, our little kitty is playing with some paper.
Tissue paper.
So if that's too loud, we'll see the audio after this. We don't know. She just shredded a whole piece. I'm watching her. It's like a miniature tiger. So today we're going to talk about a couple things. But don't forget to subscribe to get all our updates and everything coming in at the PRN SLP on Substack. That's where our newsletter is located, and we'll send out all our stuff. Today we're going to be talking about the PRN
Mindset.
Why is the mindset important? We'll find out today on the PRN SLP. So we're going to talk about a few things, but Anne is going to address a lot of these because there's some main ones that she's seen and dealt with regularly.
Yeah.
So,
but just as a little intro here, if you are going to be working, especially if you're going to be working full-time PRN, you have to think about the way that you work differently than you would if you were a full-time or even part-time somewhere. The way that you view yourself in relationship to your coworkers, the managers, the companies, and even the patients does change. It's not good, bad. It's just, you just need to think about yourself differently than you would if you were full-time. So we've kind of divided this up into 3 different sections. The first section we entitled is your true clients. And that's something that we talk about a lot. I talk about a lot.
So the PRN mindset about who are your true clients.
Yes.
In your PRN, your true clients are?
Just to overview, your full-time SLPs, your managers, and your companies. Now that's not excluding your patients. You are still there to serve your patients. However, when you take on this role of being PRN, you actually kind of take on additional roles within the company and within your coworkers.
Like there's a game within the game.
A little bit,
that you
yes.
wouldn't know about. Because let's back up a second. So if I'm working full time for a company, right? Who would I naturally think is my client?
Is the clients you're working with, like, maybe the accounts that you have or the patients list that you have.
So if I was a PRN, or if I was a regular speech pathologist working a full-time job, I would think naturally my clients are just the patients I see every day.
Correct. For the most part, yes. Like, obviously, you're there. You have to make sure your manager's happy with you, and you have to meet the requirements of whatever company you work for. But really, other than that, in your mind, and this is not bad, it's just in your mind, you're really there to serve your patients.
Right.
Like, that's the goal. However, when you're PRN, and especially when you're coming in to a facility where they have a full-time speech pathologist or even just a part-time who works there regularly, your first true client is that full-time SLP or SLPs that you are helping out. Usually when you are brought in, it's because somebody got sick, the list is entirely too long, and they're completely overwhelmed. Their kid is sick, they're going on vacation, laundry list of things that could be a reason that they're calling you in. They might have a doctor's appointment they've got to go to and get off early for, and you're there to see the people that they would have seen the remainder of that day. So part of your role is to be as absolutely helpful to them as possible, because that is your job. You are there obviously to see patients, but kind of your first priority is making sure that your full-time is okay. And there's several ways to do that, being responsive, being as helpful as you can, offering to do extra things, like if they need you to, like just for example, sometimes when I'm at one or several facilities, if I'll say, hey, do you need a progress note written? Do you need this written? I mean, just, is there something else I can take off your plate? And trying to be proactive about that.
So let me take a step back and look at a higher level here. So like what you're saying basically is that, so like PRN basically, you're the pinch hitters in the therapy world. You're the ones, when the cup overflows, you're the one catching it.
Exactly.
Right? So the value you guys have when you're working PRN is to take time, pressure, and stress off.
Yes.
Off of who?
The full-time.
The full-time and who else?
And the manager too.
And the manager.
Yeah.
So your job is not just to serve patients.
Right.
It's to actually help them do their job, because they're so overwhelmed.
Right.
They're just running around.
Exactly.
That the more time you can give them, the better their lives are.
100%. Another way, kind of dovetailing into that, because I'm glad you said it that way, is if you can be really intentional about doing things for them that just make their day easier. that, like I said earlier, could be writing some extra progress notes if they need it, asking, say, don't let them tell you, you ask them, you be proactive about it. One other thing that I have found that really helps out my full-times is I'll tell them, I will say, look, give me the difficult patients. I can take this. Like, you're probably at your wit's end. Like, give me the ones that you're at your wit's end with. Give me the ones that are unpleasant. Give me the ones that are just giving you a hard time. And for them, a lot of the times they're hesitant to do that because they tell me all the time, I want you to come back. I don't want you to get like abused or anything and then not want to come back. And I'm like, look, no, like that's not going to prevent me from coming back to help you. I'm here to help you. And if that means that I go deal with a difficult patient for one day so that you get a day off from that patient, I'm going to do that. Right. And like, I view that as an honor. Like, it's like, I actually kind of look forward to doing that for my full time.
Because you're not there every day.
Right. I'm not there every single day. I'm not in the grind at that place with them necessarily. And so oftentimes I have more mental bandwidth and emotional energy to deal with somebody really toxic. They don't. They are usually at their end of the rope.
Because you're PRN, you have more time to self-care. So when you come in, you can be the resource that they can't be for the hardest patients.
Correct.
And by you doing that, you're instantly seen by all those places and all those facilities and all those directors of therapy as the best person for this role. So you basically, in the mind of these people who can refer you business, you're like top of the list.
Right.
Because you're making their lives easier.
And if you can associate the feeling of relief with you in their minds, it goes a very long way. And that goes for both the full-times and the managers, but most of the full-times. I will say that because, if I can go in there and do what I need to do, not have to rely on them to tell me every little thing to do, like, be very, self-reliant. Obviously, there's sometimes I have questions like, hey, I don't know where this is. Can you tell me where to find this? Or how do you want me to do this? But like, if I can avoid peppering them with questions, while I'm there, that also goes a long way because they don't feel like they have to babysit me. They can just hand me patients and go, and then their day is better because of that. This
is a really key point too. So we probably should pull this off at a whole later discussion. But if you go in to be helpful and to make their lives easier, if you're constantly badgering them, ask them how to do things, you're not helping them.
Correct.
Because they haven't just handed you something and let go.
Right.
They're now having to baby you, right? So I guess another thing you're saying is you have to be capable enough where you can figure things out, do your own thing. If something, obviously, if something is so fundamental that you have to have a question answered, well, of course, you'd go ask. But you need to basically take the reins and run.
Yeah, just do your best to just take what they give you. And don't be afraid to ask questions because there's some things that that I couldn't do to help them if I didn't ask them, So, but if it's like a thing, it's of a matter of like, oh, where can I find some more tongue depressors? Poke around first before you just ask them. You still may not find them, and you may have to end up going and asking them. But making the effort to try to like figure it out for yourself first, and then if you still are stuck, then going to them, they see that, and that does go a long way. So just remember, like, you are there to help that full-time or full-times out and make their lives easier, make their day easier.
You're the overflow.
Yes, you catch the overflow. I like how you did the cup thing. That was a good.
When the cup overflows,
you catch the overflow.
You catch it. Yep.
So just be very intentional about that. That they notice, and they also will want to call you back more often if you are like this. They really will.
This is how you become a resource and invaluable thing to do all those things. Is that you become the person who's always helpful, always giving relief, that's not peppering them with random questions. You're just there. And when it happens, like, you're the person.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm going to go pick up our kitty who's about to knock off something in our kitchen.
Shelf in the
Be right back. Keep going.
She's on the highest shelf possible in the kitchen right now. I'm going to move on to managers, actually, because managers are actually a very important piece of your true clients. So we started with your full-time speech pathologists. Now we're on to managers. Managers are important. Now, they're not quite as in everything as your full-time is because they're overseeing everybody. Oh, say hi, Ivy. Say hi.
She's gotten bigger.
She's a lot bigger.
She's huge.
Yes. When we got her, she was 1.5 pounds. And I don't even know how big she is now.
I don't know.
But anyway, your managers are a really good person to think of as your clients as well. Because there's a lot of managers who they're in charge of the scheduling for all the therapy, right? They're like, hey, my full-time's going on vacation. I need to find coverage for this time that they're off. They're stressed about that. That's their responsibility. It's part of their job description. So there's things that you can do as a PRN, speech pathologist, that can make their lives easier as well. I would say the top one is being as responsive as possible to whenever they ask you to help or ask you for hours.
I'm going to clarify that too. When you say responsive, so we're talking about boundaries as well too. So when you're saying be responsive, are you saying if they text you at midnight, you should respond at midnight? What are you saying?
No, what I'm saying is, if they say, hey, can you work these hours on this day? As long, most of them should not be texting you at midnight. I have rarely had that happen. But obviously, I would wait till the morning to reply. But if I'm in the middle of my day going about things and I'm, got a break or, between things or I'm between patients, I'll look at my phone and there's a message saying, hey, so-and-so sick. Do you have any availability to come and help? And if I can get over to my planner and check and see what I've got available and get back to them quickly, that always really helps them out, because in their mind, they're like, okay, how long do I wait till she says yes or no before I go to the next PRN on the list? So if you can do your best, and it's not going to be perfect because you're going to be caught up in things, you might be driving, like don't stress too much about it, but don't wait too long to respond to them, because they're trying to make plans beyond you if you can't give that help.
I think the point you're making with being responsive is basically they're asking for help.
Right.
And so, yes, this cancel thing goes both ways. You can say, like, I can't or I can't work.
Right.
But you can't leave them on the hook without knowing.
Right.
You have to give them an answer, yes or no. And even if you say no because you're responsive, they're like, oh, this person always gets back to me. I should just keep hitting them up.
Exactly.
So it's that you're always, don't ever leave somebody hanging.
Right. Even if the answer's no, it's better that they know faster than you holding out and waiting. Now, there are some times where it's totally appropriate to say, hey, I'll respond like really quick and I'll say, hey, I'm not by my planner right now, but I'm going to be back at my planner at like such and such time, and I will let you know then if that's okay. And sometimes I'll even put, if you need to move on to the next person because you need it quickly, that's fine. Like, because you have to give them that, say, look, I'm looking into this, or no, I can't help, or yes, I can help, or I can help for this amount of time. So just being responsive in the set, you don't have to say yes every time they ask you. That's not the point here. No. But telling them what they need to know, yes or no, helps them for planning purposes, and it reduces their stress.
Because if we're thinking about this as a client, right, you would never not answer a client's questions.
Correct.
They've asked a question, you need it. The helpfulness is in giving them an answer.
Correct. No matter what the answer is.
Right.
Yes. So
as prompt as possible.
Absolutely, yes. And like I said, there's going to be times where you're, like I said, you'd be driving, or you can't do it immediately. Don't feel like you have to do it immediately, but just in a timely, respectful fashion. Another thing that you can do as well to make the manager's life a little easier is, do your best to keep up with the yearly annual training modules if you can. You don't want to be that PRN employee who they're constantly having to nag to get those modules done. And if you need help, finding time to do that, they can help you figure that out. Like, I've got several managers that are like, hey, how about I schedule you to come in, and then while you're here, after you've seen a couple patients, you just go work on those modules. Like, I have managers do that too. And then I've suggested that too. But just being as proactive and on top of those things as possible, that helps their stress level go down. And if they associate, like kind of like with the relief, the relief emotion with the full-time SLPs, if you can associate yourself with the emotions of relief and stress-free, like no anxiety or as little anxiety as possible with those managers, they're more likely to keep asking you to help, because they're like, oh, she's an easy one. I want that one. Or he's an easy one. I want that one. It helps that relationship overall. So is there anything else I need to add about the managers
and
there?
Maybe and all this is on your points, whatever, too, but depending on the setting, one thing I know I've heard you talk about, too, is a lot of these full-time speechies are so busy, they don't get all their notes done. So if you're a PRN, you're working in these facilities, you want to be the one person that every time you leave, your notes are done. Or if you're at a facility where you can wait a little longer, they're done within like a 24-hour period.
Or whatever the period is that
because
they have.
If they're waiting on you to get stuff done, if
Right.
you become a drag on them,
Right.
you're no longer a resource. You're
Right.
not helpful.
Exactly.
So you need to structure yourself where you're getting all of your notes knocked out in a timely manner.
Yes, and that's
There's that hole in the couch.
She's being very cute. No, like that's good. Just keeping up with your documentation, and that's a great way to stay off of their like stressful radar. So, but yeah, and kind of going back to, just there's several times where like I've had a note that for some reason like the system saved it wrong once at one of the hospitals I was at, and it wasn't my fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. It needed to be fixed, and I guess submitted a different way because the computer system glitched. And so, my boss, the manager texted me. She was like, hey, I'm so sorry. This note is just, it didn't go through right. Is there any way you could stop by and get that submitted correctly because it's under your signature? And yeah, that's inconvenient for me. I'm not necessarily wanting to have to like stop everything I'm doing. But, if I could get over there in a timely manner to help them with that, that really goes a long way with those managers, because oftentimes they can't bill or they can't get paid if those notes aren't, saved in the appropriate manner and submitted in the appropriate manner. So that goes a long way as well. Just try not to be the problem child. That's really the point there.
What you want is you want your clients to be little like purrs like Ivy is. That when you're there, they just purr because they're so happy.
Exactly. That's exactly
and
right.
clean themselves.
Exactly. The third piece of your true client is the company that you work for. Now, this has less to do with you pleasing the company and more to do with how you view the company. Now, of course, you want to keep your companies happy. That's a given. We're not saying that you don't do that. However, you also must remember, and we've addressed this in a previous episode, where you, as a PRN employee, you are using a company as a platform through which you see clients or patients.
Right.
And so you're working through a company, not as much for a company. Those two things are very, very different and distinct. So if you can view these companies like a platform, like an Etsy shop, this is where I come and I'm able to have access to patients to practice my practice, to be a speech pathologist. They are providing me with a platform on this. But don't view them as anything more than that. Don't have it in your mind that they're going to take perfect care of you and this end all be all. Now, of course, keep up with your annual training. Don't piss off HR, keep everything
right.
flowing, but don't view them as this thing that will always be there for you and protect you. It's a platform. If you need to switch platforms, you switch platforms.
So you're saying, okay, so if we're talking about the true client, when you're PRN, right, your true clients are your patients, your full-time SLPs, you're trying to help the managers,
right.
directors of therapy, all that stuff. So you're saying the company isn't a true client.
It is a client in the sense that you need to do your job well. You need to
right.
show up. You need to, keep your word, keep them happy in a sense. But they're a client in the sense that you have to do certain things on your end that are perfectly reasonable in order to have them as a platform.
But they're really not the client. Because think about this way. Who would pick for you to be there? Who would say, hey, Ann, I need you to come here today? Is it going to be the company or is it going to be the manager?
The manager or the full-time speech.
So what you're saying is, there are hoops to jump through with the company, but they're really not the client.
They're not yes.
They're really, the company is just the hoops you jump through to be there to help the manager and help those patients.
Correct.
They're not even the client.
Exactly.
Because again, if we're working through, it's not the company, because the company's not choosing you. It's the manager. It's a human being. It's not some faceless corporation. It's a person at a facility who knows you, who's seen you, who understands how helpful you are.
Correct. Yes. So just remember that as you're going through here. Then the other part of this too is cancellation for a PRN employee goes both ways.
Right.
Meaning you have just as much power to cancel them as they have just as much power to cancel you. There's pros and cons to that, obviously. Let's say you wake up one morning and you had promised you were gonna, or said you were gonna work this amount of time at this facility, but when you woke up that morning, you felt terrible.
Right.
And you're like, I can't work. I can't do this.
Right.
You can cancel that shift or those amount of hours. But the thing is too, they have that ability to do that to you. I've had times where I'm planning to work at this one facility. I wake up early, look at my phone, and there's a text message in there that says, hey, I'm so sorry. We had 2 people die, 4 people go home, and all these, like, seriously, that literally happened like last week, like just saying, hey, we had a bunch of people like pass away and we had 4 more people go home. We actually don't need your help now. And that was the morning of. And I will say it's not super common morning of for that to happen. But it does happen. And it inevitably will happen to you if you do this type of work this way.
Right.
So just understand, that there's going to be times where there's the give and take a little bit.
And let me respond to that too, because I want to make this absolutely clear. So if you're there to help someone, right, you shouldn't just be canceling willy-nilly.
No.
So like, let's make this clear. Yes, you have that. You have that right. You have that power. Right. The distinction here is that, like, unlike having a bucket of PTO that once you've used that bucket, it's gone, you don't have it when you're PRN.
Correct.
So if you need to take time off, please take time off.
Right.
What we're trying to say is basically that, like, you need to keep your word.
Right.
Right?
As best you can.
But if life happens, just like life happens when you're full-time, you've got to burn PTO. At the very least, there's not some corporate rule that you're violating, you could get fired.
Correct.
The difference is like, as long as you're maintaining that relationship with that manager, saying, I am so sorry, my kid's sick, I apologize, can I make up these hours somewhere? If you're maintaining that relationship with that person, that's what matters.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, like, that facility I was talking about, have been times where I've had to cancel morning of. But I actually don't feel bad about it because they've canceled me morning of. It really...
And the managers will feel bad for canceling you.
Exactly. They always feel so bad. They're like, I am so sorry. Right. I just got here. I just looked at the list. I just saw that this happened.
We don't need your help.
And I've even had them say, if I had known last night, I would have told you. You know, like that kind of thing.
But it happened overnight.
Right.
The shift,
Exactly. So, like, there's things that you can't control with this.
Right.
But just understand that you have that power to cancel. So don't feel bad to use that power when you need to.
You see her? She's like,
she's so sweet, little baby.
Okay, so your true clients. Your true clients are the speech paths you work with that you're helping to replace. If they need help, the managers there, the therapy directors, somewhat your companies, but more through, not for. So just keep that in mind.
Yep.
So that's point 1. Now, what is point 2 of the PRN mindset?
Viewing yourself as self-employed while still being a W-2 employee at these companies.
Now that sounds a little scary initially, to think of myself as being self-employed.
Right.
That's kind of scary. If I was working full-time, I'd be like, whoa, hold on a second, what are you talking about?
Well, I will say this is the best of both worlds because there's a lot of those like entrepreneurial types that want to be independent, that don't want anybody, no safety net. Like you don't have to be that way to do this lifestyle, because when you are PRN, you are still a W-2 employee. So
most places.
For most places. Now you'll know which one it is. Because I have one 1099 place that I work. The rest are W-2.
But most places, you're technically an employee.
Correct.
So you're getting the benefit of being an employee, which has certain benefits, while still being in control of your life.
Correct.
So functionally, what you're saying is, like, you're literally the best of self-employed versus full-time.
Correct.
Because you have less of the paperwork admin stuff. Like, you don't need to make an LLC to do this.
Right.
You don't have to have a whole separate thing.
Right.
You can just work this way, but functionally, you are self-employed.
Correct. So you have to, you are not technically self-employed, but you have to put your brain in self-employed mode, but not for everything. Like you said, you don't have to get an LLC. You don't have to have your own,
But specifically, when we're saying self-employed, we're saying you have to line up places and build relationships for you to go work at facilities and you be the person they call on for help.
Correct. So, I mean, the best way to put this is you've got to hustle a little bit. You're not guaranteed hours. However, we're in such demand, I don't have to hustle that much, to be perfectly honest. Now, there is seasonality to the therapy world.
Well, someone who works full-time would know that too.
And they know that too.
Yeah.
So there's times when caseloads are low and you're not going to be as needed. And so but that's the thing with having that self-employed mindset is like, you might have to have some savings built away, stored away for those times when it's a little lower than normal. You might have to, just be on the lookout for maybe an extra gig here and there if you need it, just having that mindset that it's not just a plug and play. You actually have to work and manipulate it.
You have to work. That sounds intimidating.
It does.
Somebody's never heard this. But here's the point. Like we want to absolutely make sure you understand. The demand is so great. It doesn't require that much more effort than what you're already doing in a full-time location.
Correct.
It takes a new gear that you don't have, you have to cultivate. So when you build those neural pathways to think a little differently, that sounds a little scary. But once those grooves are built and you're able to think that way, and you can line up a couple places to work at, I mean, you would never go back, would you?
No,
right?
Not at all. No, and even if I wasn't married and those kind of things, I would still figure out a way to make this work. I really, really would.
Yeah.
Just because once you've tasted being in control of your life, it's really hard to even contemplate not being in control of your life.
Right.
So you have to really think about the fact that if you're not clocked in wherever it is you're working, you're not getting paid. So that's the thing with being full-time. You don't really think in those terms in the same sense. You don't think, oh, well, I shouldn't do that because I'm not on the clock. If
I could say this too, I think here's the distinction, right? I think this is what you're saying. Let me like sum it up a little tightly. When you work a full-time job, you show up. When you're PRN, you have to fill the hours you need to work.
Correct.
And that's the self-employed mindset we're talking about.
Yes.
You have to not only work the job, you have to fill in the hours to work.
Yes.
That's the distinction.
But dovetailing off that a little bit, if you're not clocked in, you're not getting paid.
Right.
You don't have like a guaranteed salary like the full-time people do.
Right.
That's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to understand you can't be seeing a patient and not clocked in. You can't be doing a report and not clocked in. I tell people all the time, it's like, we all have a speechy brain, and that's where we go into when we're assessing, when we're treating, when we're diagnosing, whatever it is. I kind of view it like we should be treated like lawyers or someone who has billable hours, because a lawyer or even a doctor,
your time is money.
Your time is money.
Right.
So lawyers, when they are in their lawyer brain mode, they're getting paid for that. If they're having to go into that part of their brain where they went to law school to develop, just like us, we went to get our graduate degree to develop.
And I think this is a little bit of an illusion, because I think what happens is you work at a full-time job and you think your time isn't money.
Right.
Because you just have to work those 40 hours regardless, or 50 hours, or whatever the number is, right? But the thing is, your time is always money.
Right.
When you're working on the clock, you're still being paid. It's just that you've given away the
power.
upside.
Yeah.
Right? So
Exactly.
the difference is on this side, you have to understand like that working self-employed, the idea is that like you have to understand your time is money.
Right.
So you have to fill those hours and you have to find those slots.
Right. Well, and then going back to the speechy brain, you need to get paid to use your speechy brain. And I would say this to a full-time too.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
Yeah, so basically that well of knowledge that you have worked over years to develop, both from school and from your clinical rotations and then from just working and being in the field, if someone's asking you to use that part of your brain, you should be getting paid to use that part of your brain. I will give an example. I had a boss years ago, loved them as a person, great person, but I wasn't at this facility all the time, but I'm the only speech pathologist there because they don't have a big enough caseload to have a full-time. So I'm the point person, but I'm still PRN. She got into this habit where she would call me when I was somewhere else. I'd be like eating lunch or something, or, and she would literally read me a patient's history and then ask me what they needed to do speech-wise for them.
But you weren't getting paid.
But I wasn't getting paid for that. And I'm like, okay. So I caught on to this kind of quickly. So because of the way that this company works, I have the ability to clock in from my phone, because there's times when you're in the field and you need to clock in and out. So it would get to the point where she would call me and I'd be like eating lunch or doing something. I would not answer. I would clock in on my phone and then I would call her back. And then I would let her give me the history and ask me. But
the point to all that is basically... The point
was she was asking me to basically work. I was asked to work without being paid. And I had to draw a boundary there.
So the self-employment mindset is basically, my time is money.
Yep.
So if I'm doing work for work,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be paid for that.
Correct.
I'm not going to work off the clock.
Correct.
Right.
And because that's what she was basically asking me to do. And I don't even think she thought about it that way, but that's what was happening.
Yep.
So if, you're being asked to analyze a patient with your speech pathologist glasses on, you should be paid for that. So that's the last part of the
So
self-employed
first point,
part.
your true clients. Second point, so the PRN mindset is who are your true clients. Second point is self-employed. You got to think and work. Self-employed. Ivy just knocked over my notebook. And then what's the third point?
Logistics, scheduling. Now we'll have a whole another episode full of all the details about this. We'll just kind of briefly touch on the logistics, scheduling, and things like that for today. Number one, scheduling. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be adaptable. As PRN, your schedule can change very quickly. Sometimes it doesn't change, but it's not an uncommon occurrence for your schedule to change. Sometimes in the middle of the day, sometimes towards the end of the day. You need to be able to be adaptable for that. And we've talked about that, kind of having like, if that would stress you out, if that would just ruin your whole day, that's okay, but maybe don't work in that full-time SLP capacity or full-time PRN capacity. Maybe have a couple side gigs and and that may not stress you out as much. But being as flexible as you can and kind of rolling with the punches, being able to, if somebody cancels on you, say, oh, I could fill that time in with these people, with this facility, and being willing to like kind of stop what you're doing then and kind of be a point person to figure out what your next move needs to be. Can I move this patient up here and then go over here? And being willing to kind of play with the puzzle pieces a little bit there.
If I can jump in real quick. I think the distinction that I'm hearing you're saying is that instead of having logistics within one facility, if I work at a full-time job, I just have to schedule patients who are there. Oh, I don't have any schedule? Well, I'm still here, right? You're saying I have to schedule at different facilities as well. It's not even one place, it's multiple places.
Yes, and that's the thing. When you're full-time PRN, for the most part, you're going to need to have more than one employer. And but there's some people who don't, and that's fine. That's great. But you're going to need to have more than one place that you work to make this work.
Okay.
Then understanding the seasonality of the therapy world, and we've touched on this a little bit, but there's high and low points. In my experience, and I'd say a lot of other people would agree with me on this, winter can be a high. Fall and winter are just sometimes awful. Like they're so busy. So many people are sick. They slip and fall on ice. Everybody's just more vulnerable when it's cold outside. Now, warmer times, summer, and sometimes the early fall for me, in my experience,
like
has
August,
September. Beginning of September is like a weird time that I've noticed. It could just be slower, and I don't know if it has to do with the weather, if it has to do with people going on vacation, whatever it is. So just understanding that you're going to have to, you may not get exactly the hours you want all of the time, especially in those lower seasons. And that's where becoming adaptable and flexible really is important.
Because you'll make a lot of money over a whole period, but you make a lot more money maybe in certain seasons than in certain other seasons.
Right.
So it may freak a lot of people out if they start working, and they start working, let's say, the summer, and everything's low. I'm like, so it may freak you out. So we'll go into, like, if you're launching and doing this, like, what stuff you want to have before you do that and all those things like that. But obviously you want to have some savings in reserve before you launch off, because this is almost like starting a business. But again, it's not.
Right.
Because the demand is so great.
Right.
Because once you hit that fall, and the demand is, you're so busy in all, like, basically the major holidays of the fall through, like, New Year's. The demand is so great. You could make probably, I don't want to speculate, but close to a year's worth of salary full time just in the fall to winter.
Sometimes, yeah, but no, it's definitely busier.
Yeah.
And that I like you might need some savings just to make sure, but for the most part, if you're pretty adaptable and flexible, you can make even the low seasons work. You can, and we'll talk more about, like knowing what you need.
Even low seasons, you're still making what, 70 to 80%.
Oh, easy, 90.
So it's not like you don't have zero.
Right.
You're just not hitting the peak that you want sometimes.
Correct. Exactly. The last part of the logistics thing is, as a full-time PRN SLP, you need to track everything. I'll tell you. From how many hours you work, how much you're getting paid, mileage, so whether your mileage is reimbursed or not reimbursed. You need to track, I track personally how much I make per day so that I know where I'm at. I track whether I track drive time, but you need to have a place where all this is recorded. Tax purposes are a big reason for this, but also, especially if you're trying to hit a certain amount of hours or a certain amount of money, and we'll go into that, like how to think through that later, but you need to be able to know where you're at relatively quickly. And so if you're in the habit of tracking and logging, okay, I worked 4.75 hours at this place, and then I went over here and I worked 3 hours at this other place, and this is how much I get paid at each of these places, do the math, see how much you made that day. Oh, and then I drove between this place and this place. How many miles was that? Use your odometer, write it down, put it in your phone, wherever it is. But tracking things as a PRN SLP is very important. You don't necessarily have to think about that if you're a full-time employee because things are just covered or there. But to keep all of your stuff straight and to keep your head straight about where you are, tracking is very, very important. So just keep that in mind, and because that's just a completely different mindset than you would have to have if you were just full-time.
It's like if you're flying a plane, you need to be able to look at your dials and know like where you are in case you need to modulate anything.
Correct. Yes.
So,
and then like taxes, whenever tax season comes up, knowing how much you drove, it makes everything easier. So just keep that in mind if this is something that you're thinking about.
Yep.
But yeah, that was the last point on that.
So the PRN mindset 1.
Your true clients.
Know your true clients.
Know your true clients.
Know your true clients and be a resource to them. Your true clients are who?
Most of the time, it's your full-times.
Full-time speech paths.
Speech paths, as well as your managers.
Okay. Work how?
Act like you're a self-employed person.
So fill your time. Your time is money, and you can do better and have more time off working this way. So don't think otherwise.
You're right.
And then last,
logistics, scheduling well, and being flexible, and tracking things. Just it's just different ways to think about working.
So those are the key things to know when you're working PRN. Those are the key mindsets. And Ivy wants to say goodbye before we go. Lolly's right here. She's our little dog. You can't see her. And she really wants to go say hi to her, but if she does, we would probably stop this video really quick. So, all right. With that, thanks again. Subscribe.
Yes.
Go to our Substack, the PRN SLP. Get updates from us for everything. See more pictures of Ivy and eventually Lolly. She's a little kitten. She's getting bigger every time we're on. But thanks again.
Bye, guys.